Be careful when you fight monsters, lest you become one yourself. And those who would trade an ounce of liberty for a pound of security deserve neither and will lose both. Folks, I am not a radical libertarian. I recognize that we live in an imperfect world, and certainly during times of warfare, temporary and drastic measures sometimes need to be taken. When you have a roach infestation in your house, you bug bomb it. And when you have a subversive network of violent, agenda-driven individuals allied with a foreign country, you root it out. But when you discover a spider in the corner of your room, you step on it and you carry about your day. Definitions are important when it comes to all of this, which is why General Wesley Clark's recent statements are very worrisome.
How do we fix self-radicalized lone wolves domestically?
Well, we've got to identify the people who are most likely to be radicalized. We've got to cut this off at the beginning. There are always a certain number of young people who are alienated. They don't get a job, they lost a girlfriend, their family doesn't feel happy here. And we can watch the signs of that, and there are members of the community who will reach out to those people and bring them back in and encourage them to look at their blessings here. But I do think on a national policy level, we need to look at what self-radicalization means, because we are at war with this group of terrorists. They do have an ideology. In World War II, if someone supported Nazi Germany at the expense of the United States, we didn't say that was freedom of speech. We put them in a camp. They were prisoners of war. So if these people are radicalized and they don't support the United States and they're disloyal to the United States as a matter of principle, fine, that's their right. It's our right and our obligation to segregate them from the normal community for the duration of the conflict. And I think
on the surface, he seems to be talking about Islamic radicals. Dig a little bit deeper, and he seems to be justifying the Japanese internment camps from World War II. But what really bothers me about that statement, in this era where the Confederate flag is now a form of hate speech, where baking a wedding cake for a gay couple is no longer optional, and where law enforcement agencies are being warned about people flying the Gadsden flag, what bothers me the most is his use of the term lone wolf radicals. So, you know what? I'd like to consider a few of these spree killers, a few of these mass murderers, and see what conclusions we can draw from all of this. First off the bat, we've got Elliot Rodgers, a man that was so angry that other men had kissed women that he decided to murder his 3 roommates and then murder 3 women from the Delta 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 sorority. Next we have Christopher Dorner, a man who was carrying the flag of abuse of power and racism within the LAPD, who killed 2 young ladies who were daughters of people he'd known in the LAPD, as well as their beaux. And finally, we've got Baruch Goldstein, a man who immigrated to Israel, served in the IDF, and then decided to murder over 100 Muslims while they were praying in the Cave of the Patriarchs incident. Now, let's consider some of the homegrown terrorist attacks which have occurred. We have the 2005 London bombings. These were perpetrated by 4 young men, all of whom were natural-born citizens of the UK of Pakistani parents. Next, we've got the Charlie Hebdo attacks of last year. And these were from 2 brothers born to Algerian parents. And of course, we have the 2006 Toronto 18. The men, the majority of whom were natural-born Canadian citizens. So let's look back at the spree killers for a moment. Let's consider Elliot Rodgers. What was his motivation again? Something about hating sluts? Well, did he accomplish his goals by killing them? Or did he make it so that any man that criticizes feminism is now compared to him? Take Christopher Dorner. Again, he picked the racism and abuse of power in the LAPD. And did his spree killing do anything to advance his cause? And Goldstein, the same thing. He served in the IDF. He certainly could have switched from being a medical doctor to being infantry if he so desperately wanted to kill Islamic terrorists that were trying to destroy the Israeli state. Each one of these guys, rather than trying to achieve their ends, they were just looking for an excuse to kill people. Every single time one of these spree killers appears in the media, everybody asks why they did it. What radicalized them? What was their agenda? When their only agenda was mass murder. Elliot Rodger had a rich father and could have been easily introduced to all the socialites in Hollywood. You can listen to his videos, you can read his manifesto. This kid was invited to parties. The only reason that he couldn't meet a woman is because he was terrible with women. He was weird and creepy and everyone could smell killer all over him. Christopher Dorner lives in a city where there are thousands of lawyers looking to make a paycheck suing the government over racism and abuse of power by the LAPD. And yet he decided to murder people tangentially connected to the LAPD. And, of course, Goldstein. Rather than killing Islamic terrorists, which he would have gotten medals for doing, he killed a bunch of Muslims that were praying. Men, women, and children. Indiscriminate murder. Now, let's consider these terrorist attacks and ask ourselves, what is the goal of these terrorist attacks? And were they successful? The goal is to make the West afraid, to punish us for what we're doing in the Middle East, to force us to allow Sharia law upon our own shores, to silence us, to take away our freedom of speech, to destroy our freedoms. And at least in the case of Charlie Hebdo, you could say that has been successful, because they are no longer going to print any cartoons about Muhammad, because they are frightened. The other three set back whatever movement they were claiming to fight for. Whereas these Islamic terrorists that are learning from experts, that are joining these forums, they do have an agenda. They are serving their agenda, and they're doing it very effectively. But sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Last year's attack on Parliament Hill, the one that hit me very close to home, because Corporal Nathan Cirillo was a member of my old regiment. I never had the honor of meeting the young lad, but he was in Argyll. That attack was performed by a drug addict living in a homeless shelter who just converted to Islam back in 2004. He was born in Montreal. And the reason he attacked Parliament Hill? Because it was taking him too long to get a visa so that he could move to the Middle East. No connections to Islamic terror there. Nothing but a lone, crazy wolf. Completely unpredictable. So, General, let me explain something to you. First, these These FEMA internment camps that you're talking about for anybody that disagrees with the government, aside from the hypocrisy of the fact that you're a member of a party which used to say that disagreement is patriotic. First of all, that's not our way. That's not how Western countries behave. That's not how civilized countries behave. We deal with legitimate threats that need to be dealt with. But we don't start locking up anybody who disagrees in internment camps. And second of all, these lone wolves that you want to find. Well, you know what? There's actually a whole Wikipedia list of spree killers. I recommend you check it out for yourself. And you know what? They don't really seem to be getting any worse. Every so often, you get a spree killer, a crazy person, and they grab the nearest political cause that they can. If you're a young white man growing up in North America, you blame it on the sluts. If you're a black man, you blame it upon racism. If you're an Israeli Jew, you blame it upon Muslims. At the end of the day, these people just want to murder. They have no agenda. Their agenda is just an excuse for the crimes they commit. And you cannot predict this with any type of reasonable security apparatus without destroying the very freedoms that Islamic radicals want to destroy in the first place. Focus on the terrorists, General. That is something that the CIA, working overseas, and the FBI, working within the borders of America, that is something they can do something about. And temporary measures to deal with this enemy while the war is going on, and arresting them for sedition, that is all perfectly reasonable and civilized. But locking up anybody who disagrees with the government because they might become a lone wolf terrorist, well, I think we know who the monster is in that scenario. We don't defeat Islam by destroying ourselves. Aurini out, folks.